What's up, everybody? Coming to you live Friday, 11 a.m. Feeling good. All those warm thoughts and feelings as we roll into the weekend. But today I am going to pick up part two. We've been doing this so long, we now have segments. Food mascots is going to be the conversation again today. Now, I'm looking through Ad Week last night, and the next thing you know, there's an article on food mascots comes up number one. There's no graceful way to update a controversial mascot. Okay, I couldn't even believe it. Okay, for those who watch Daily Diversity Doug, 2 weeks ago, I covered the conversation around food mascots and I shared that I have over 100 pieces of food mascot memorabilia. This is right here, 1945 to 1951 coffee cups from the Aunt Jemima restaurant. Are you checking this out? Used to be a line of diners called Aunt Jemima, and this is a coffee cup right from the diner. I have all the different collections of ads here. The 1929 ad where Aunt Jemima was darkened a little bit. Then I have the comic book collection. This ran for 2 years. And then I also right here have the plantation collection where she was living in the outhouse. So I understand the food mascot game. But then I'm reading more in ad week and I'm getting more and I'm hearing, and then the next thing you know, I see another article on food mascots, which became the number one read article on ad week today, and I got excited. The conversation is out there, it's in the aura, it's in the ether. But then when I read the article, I wasn't really sure how I felt because the headline was titled, "These brands are still tapping into nostalgia for slavery." Okay, so these brands are still tapping into nostalgia for slavery. And I don't agree with that. I don't think brands are tapping into nostalgia because I did look up the word nostalgia to just make sure that I was on the right page. What is nostalgia? Okay, so read that second definition. The first one says the state of being homesick. Okay, that's fine. The second one says the artful or expressive sentiments yearning for return of some other period or inconceivable condition. I don't actually think the brands are tapping into nostalgia when we look at the food mascots that were discussed in that article. They looked at Eskimo Pie, Rastus from Cream of Wheat, Aunt Jemima, also looked at Mrs. Butterworth, the Chiquita Banana. So there was a lot of looking into those articles about the nostalgia. I don't think that people realize these brands are from people who were enslaved or groups that were taken advantage of. Like in example to the Chiquita, the perception is that the women picking the bananas are underpaid. They really shouldn't be marketed in a way that they are some exotic, banana models, essentially, right? Because that's not the reality. So you could look at this on all foods, and it really gets into the, details of it all. But I don't think it is nostalgia. It seems that I let me just read that title again because I just want to. I could talk about this all day. Let me just read that title one more time. These brands are still tapping into nostalgia for slavery. I don't think so. First of all, what we really should say, like I said last time, was we should use the term enslaved. Okay? People were enslaved, they were not slaves. They were held and captivated, and they were owned, and they were literally operated, and they were controlled 100% by an owner. So they were enslaved people. So I think that's the first thing. but also we don't check on the other mascots. Okay, so the challenge with these three mascots in particular they talk about here, Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, and Rastus from Cream of Wheat. The issue is that Aunt Jemima has evolved from what it started with and has been upgraded to have the look and feel and appearance of modernization. So people don't know if she's a spokesperson for the brand, if she's repping the brand. Uncle Ben and Rastus, I hear you. They definitely need to figure out what they're doing with the branding, but it got me looking into some other logos, and I want to kind of start this again from the top. And let's first look at Quaker Oats. I don't feel that people have a nostalgia for William Penn, who was the founder of the province of Pennsylvania, and he was a Quaker, and he brought those Quaker reliefs of free religion to the area of Pennsylvania. William Penn. That's originally who the Quaker Oat was modeled after. And then the Quaker Oat was sold to the Quaker Oats Company, which is a combination of multiple companies that came together. And then they now say that this is just an amalgamation of the pure wholesomeness of the Quaker community and doesn't necessarily represent one particular person. They just re-upped their logo. They, took a couple LBs off, trimmed the shoulders a little bit, gave him a little haircut. All right, I see you, Quaker. But let's get into the details. Okay, so the article was titled, "These brands are still tapping into the nostalgia for slavery, whether you believe it or not." Now, I don't believe that they're tapping into the nostalgia of slavery. I think the challenge with the food logos, okay, is that if you look at Chef Boyardee, okay, he was a real chef. Chef Boyardini. His name was hard to pronounce, so he phonetically spelled it on his hat. He was a chef at an amazing country club. He was asked to tap by Woodrow Wilson when he was the president to be the chef of his wedding. He cooks for the wedding. Woodrow Wilson gets divorced and married again. He cooks for the second wedding. Everybody had to be a member of this golf club to get some of his food, so he decided to put it in cans because he was working at an exclusive golf resort. So what ended up happening is he started selling his spaghetti and sauces in cans and sold the company, okay? $6 million. He sold the company, Chef Boyardee. So he is on the package, but he is the owner and the creator of the package, okay? Then you got this young lady here. We may not know who it is, but we know who it is. And for those in the know, Wendy Thomas, okay? She is a spokesperson for Wendy's, which is her dad's restaurant. He had 5 kids. Her nickname was Wendy. He was trying to figure out which kid to name his new hamburger restaurant after. Should he name it after himself? He ended up apologizing to her because her whole life she had to be Wendy from Wendy's, and it was a character that he placed on her lap. I bring this up because I don't think there's a nostalgia for young girls cooking hamburgers. Do you know what I mean? It's like I don't think people realize where the logos come from versus a nostalgia. Now, KFC, shout out to all the remixes that the Colonels had over the years. So I love the advertising around it, and big shout out to all the diversity they brought to Colonel Sanders. But Colonel Sanders was also the founder, a real guy, 40 years old, owns a gas station, starts cooking fried chicken. He's a Kentucky colonel. He decides to go to other gas stations, franchises it out, sells the company millions of dollars. He is the food mascot for KFC, but he actually got compensated, and he's the owner and the operator. But then when it comes to this guy, who you may or may not know, this is Famous Amos. Famous Amos started a cookie company, and in 1985, it started running through some financial trouble. He brings in outside investors. They take the food company away from him and sell it for $60 million. 5 years later, he doesn't get any money. He starts making cookies called Not So Famous Amos. They sue him. he loses his name and his trademark and everything. So Famous Amos has a little story of him on some packages, but I would say he's still the food representative of Famous Amos cookies. But after the lawsuit, people got mad at Famous Amos, but they were like, you didn't know your business and you signed a bad contract. So it's like we didn't really know where to go there. And he now has a company called Wally's, because he's Wally Amos, and it's Wally's Muffins, and he lives in Hawaii. But I say all this because if we really are going to have a conversation about the food mascots, we need to realize that there's many different food mascots. Some are the founders, some are the chef. We don't know. But what I do know is this: all of the black food mascots seemingly did not start the company. They did not get a royalty from the company, and they don't currently own the company, and their families aren't getting paid off the company. And then the other food mascots were either created as symbols of something or represent the founders and the creators. So I just think that I like that we're having this conversation now. Shout out to Adweek for publishing it. I love how we are bringing this conversation to light, but if we're going to have the conversation about food mascots, we need to realize that some of the food mascots are the owner, operator, and controller of the company. And some of the food mascots, because of when the foods were marketed, did not have the opportunity to share any of the wealth. And what's also important to realize is that these brands are worth so much money and these companies are so large. I don't think people have any understanding or perspective of where the logos are. Like if you looked at Chef Boyardee, well, he owned the company and sold it and someone franchised it. So you're like, yo, I would love that. I support Chef Boyardee. Maybe he gets a royalty. If you buy Uncle Ben, maybe you're thinking the same thing. Like the customer doesn't really know, but then it goes back last week to what I said about the words aunt and uncle. Anyway, what I want to do is say happy Friday. Tomorrow, if you are around, DJ D Nice. I'm loving this Hennessy hookup. Sponsoring D Nice. Listen on the IG. I'll see you next week.